Modesty is the spice of life. And the truth be told, you could not expect anything else from the Briscoe brothers. But the fact of the matter is, the Briscoe brothers were asked in a recent interview on Busted Open Radio. Speaking on Monday's episode of Busted Open Radio, the Briscoes were asked if they believe that they belong on Ring of Honor's Mount Rushmore, and they said, "I guess so." Modesty is the spice of life, as I said, and the fact of the matter is, I think if there's anybody, especially now, that belong on the Mount Rushmore of Ring of Honor, it is the Briscoe brothers. I think you can make a case for Bryan Danielson. I think you can make a case for Samoa Joe. I think you could also make a case for somebody like Seth Rollins, Austin Aries, Nigel McGuinness. I think it would be hard to make a singular Mount Rushmore. So to say that certain people may or may not make the cut, but in my opinion, you can't have a Mount Rushmore of Ring of Honor without the single greatest tag team in the history of Ring of Honor, that being the Briscoe brothers. That is my opinion, of course. I know, as I said at the outset of the video, but this is what Mark said on Busted Open Radio. We put in the most days, that's for sure. We definitely put the most days. Punched the clock the most times anyway. That's a humbling thing because we were 17, 18 when Ring of Honor started. We were surrounded by the best, the All-Stars, Bryan Danielson, Samoa Joe, and we were these young kids still in high school, and now we're here 20 years later. It is unquestionable that the Briscoes are among the founding fathers of Ring of Honor and deserve everything that they could get. They deserve everything they can get as far as nothing but respect from the Ring of Honor faithful. You know what I mean? And the fact of the matter is, the Briscoes were inducted first into the Ring of Honor Hall of Fame. They were a part of the first class in the Ring of Honor Hall of Fame last year, or this past year. They were a part of the Ring of Honor Hall of Fame this past year, so that should prove something. And I'm not going to sit here and say that clearly the Ring of Honor's Mount Rushmore is the first class of the Hall of Fame, because in my opinion, there are people that weren't accounted for because they couldn't be, because they were under contract with WWE. That being Nigel McGuinness, that being, some people that may have had a bit of an impact on Ring of Honor that is understated, but to say that some of those guys don't belong in the bigger picture and aren't the reason why Ring of Honor made it as far as it did would be an understatement. So I do agree with it in some cases. I'm just saying that the first class of the Ring of Honor Hall of Fame, which I hope that they have a second class next year. And I also hope that the Independent Wrestling Hall of Fame adds another class next year, because it was a very intriguing step this year, seeing the Ring of Honor Hall of Fame, the Independent Wrestling Hall of Fame, rather, as well. But it's just one of those conversations that I'm sure a lot of people wonder about. And I think everybody has their own take, but in my opinion, to say anybody else deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore and not the Briscoes would be incredibly short-sighted to discount the amount of impact that the Briscoes had on Ring of Honor over the last 20 years. The bigger picture, though, is this. The reason that this is another news video, by the way. I know I didn't introduce it the same way as I usually do, because I just wanted to break into the news and not, do it the way I normally do, because there's something that I think that needs to be taken with a grain of salt. Reported from E-Wrestling News, the same place that I put together the news from a couple of days ago. And I will post this story down below, that according to a new report from the Wall Street Journal, Vince McMahon intends to make a comeback to WWE. Right now, Vince McMahon is still the highest, the main stockholder within the company, I do believe, but as far as corporate power, the only power he has is on the board of directors, and that's it. For those who may have been living under a rock for the last couple of months, Vince stepped away from the company back in the summer after the scandal, the sexual misconduct scandal, finally took down Vince McMahon. But the Wall Street Journal reported today, according to E-Wrestling News, that Vince McMahon has told people that he intends on making a comeback, telling them he received bad advice from those close to him when he decided to step down, and he believes the whole scandal would have blown over by now had he remained with the company. McMahon reports after the Wall Street Journal resigned after reports from the Wall Street Journal revealed that he paid $14.6 million to women to suppress allegations of sexual misconduct and infidelity, with all women signing a non-disclosure agreement. In my opinion, that dropkick sounds stiff. This report also goes over the other, the many filings against Vince that came out during the investigation. And also, Vince's departure was hastened by federal investigations from the SEC and federal prosecutors into the payments. In my opinion, if there's any legitimacy to this report, Vince McMahon needs to look at the bigger picture and see that WWE is in not just more than capable hands, with his daughter and Nick Khan running the day-to-day operations and Triple H being in charge of creative, that the company is doing better than it has been in years. And for him to come back, it would be an insult to his daughter, it would be an insult to his son-in-law, it would be an insult to Nick Khan. And in my opinion, some people within the company need to step up and say that Vince shouldn't come back for the overall health of his baby. Because Vince, even though he misses being in the limelight and being involved and being a workaholic, if there's any truth to this, which I'm going to say take it with a grain of salt, because the fact of the matter is, if there's any truth to the fact that Vince McMahon thinks he should come back, he is more delusional and needs to be evaluated before he is able to make such a return. Because the fact of the matter is, Vince doesn't belong in the power structure in WWE anymore. And it is that WWE is in better, more capable hands now, because for once, the company is actually listening to the fans. For once, the company is actually planning and not just shooting from the hip and going with whatever they ideally think is the best way to go. And for once, they are building for the future and not just relying on the past like Vince has been doing for way too long. And the structure that the company is going with a long-term plan, they accepted the fact that the ratings will not come back instantaneously, and it is something that they have to build up. It is something that they have to change over time, because the damage was done over the last couple of years by Vince McMahon. The damage was done by Vince over the last couple of years, and it is something now that they have to change over time, that they can't change they can't change instantaneously. It is something that has to change over time. And if you can't tell, this is something that I feel very strongly about. Because the fact of the matter is, to say that this company would be better under Vince, you would be delusional. And it would be pretty obvious that you have your head so far up Vince's ass that you think that he is the only person capable of making WWE something of a success. But in my opinion, Vince McMahon, if you are listening to this, please think before you talk and understand you don't belong in the company anymore. That if you want to be in the power structure, if you want to be within the power structure, that's fine, because you are still a capable member of the board of directors. But as far as, just step back, Vince. Please, just step back and understand that your daughter, your son-in-law, and Nick Khan are more than capable of taking care of your baby. And step back and retire. Just step aside, Vince. That's all you need to do, is just step aside. I know it's not that easy. I know it's something that you don't want to do, and it's something you've never wanted to do. But after what happened this year, and the expected arrival of the Vince McMahon documentary that is supposed to be airing tonight on Vice. So Vice is hit a home run with the Tales from the Territory series, and will also be hitting a home run with the documentary on Vince McMahon set for tonight, called The 9 Lives of Vince McMahon. But in my opinion, it's something that shouldn't even be talked about. It shouldn't even be thought of as far as Vince McMahon coming back. Whether he got good advice or bad advice, it doesn't matter. What matters is Vince needs to understand that the best place for him now is to just retire and enjoy being with his grandkids and spending time with his family and just stepping back and doing other things that he hasn't been able to do in the last 40 years. So again, I just want to say, if there's any reports to this outside of the Wall Street Journal, even though the Wall Street Journal were the ones that did initially report what happened back in July, and the news that reported back in July, the Wall Street Journal were the ones that started the wildfire. So they do have credibility with these reports. But the fact of the matter is, it shouldn't even be something that's talked about. It shouldn't even be something that's talked about. And I do hope that there's nothing more to this story other than just Vince throwing about the idea of wanting to go back to the WWE. Either way, these have been my thoughts, and I hope if you have any, please feel free to share them down below. But the fact of the matter is, this shouldn't even be something we're talking about. But, there is credibility to it because of who's reporting it. But, I guess we'll have to see what happens. Either way, let's end it on a high note and say that it is crazy to me that there is still no official report when Charlotte Flair could be returning to WWE, as Charlotte has spent most of the year away from professional wrestling, including getting married to Andrade El Idolo over the summertime. And now there has been reports of creative making plans for Charlotte's return, but there is no official date set for Charlotte to return to the company, which is crazy because can you imagine how much healthier the division will be when Charlotte Flair does come back? Either way, let me know down in the comment section below your thoughts on everything and anything that I spoke about in this video, or anything you want to ask, or anything you want my opinion on. Let me know down in the comment section below. But if you're enjoying these news videos, feel free to let me know that by leaving a like, subscribing to the channel, because any and all interactions with these videos do help and are very much appreciated. And with that being said, the only thing left to say is, do not forget to ding dong that notification bell to always know when a new video is up on the channel. And I will see you all in the next one.